Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the D-Shift podcast. And I am so glad you're here because I have somebody that I am really honored to have on the podcast today. Getrude Matshe is somebody that I heard her TEDx talk, one of her 3 TEDx talks, I may mention. And I just knew I absolutely had to get to know more about this amazing woman. She was very kind, had me on her podcast, and now I'm not returning the favor. I'm so excited about this. This is like so much more of an honor for me to have her come on here. I want to introduce you just briefly. Getrude is an international speaker. She's an author. And like I said, a 3 times TEDx speaker. She's on a mission to uplift others, empower women, and help people to create a legacy. She is a Rooney International Scholar and Philanthropic Consultant. And she is also a multiple business owner and starter and entrepreneur. And she's founder of the global curator of Her Story Circle and Diversity Connector podcast. Getrude, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be on your show.
Well, it's absolutely wonderful. You have such a powerful story. So I'd like to just stop talking and turn the floor over to you. If you wouldn't mind telling people who maybe haven't had the chance to listen to your TEDx talks or hear you speak in other places, can you tell us a little bit about your story? Because it's one that we can all relate to in certain areas, and it's just such a powerful message.
Thank you. Well, I was born in Zimbabwe. Lived in New Zealand for 23 years with my first husband, brought up our 3 beautiful children in New Zealand. Unfortunately, went through a divorce in 2015. I laugh now and say he upgraded for a younger model, but one of those things, right? And I then went on to create the Her Story Circle movement out of my divorce. So I was left broken financially, spiritually, emotionally, and ended up collapsing with congestive heart failure in 2017. And in rebuilding my life, I put a post that went viral on Facebook where I posed the question, how many women find themselves at 50 having to start life all over again? This is my story. What amazed me was in 48 hours, I had 2,500 women respond in 15 countries. One woman wrote to me and said to me, Getrude, I ended up having a stroke. Another one said she had breast cancer. Another one also had heart failure. And I thought, I need to create a space where our stories can breathe. Because as women, we trap all of these emotions in our bodies and they manifest in all kinds of illnesses. So this is how the Her Story Circle movement was founded. I created a space in Las Vegas where women could come and speak their stories. I had 100 women at my first event speaking, and to qualify to speak, they had to bring 10 friends. So we had 1,000 women at the very first event we put together. And the whole idea behind Her Story is to create a space where you can share with no judgment, where your story can breathe and just get out of your system. It's a healing space. In Zimbabwe, we don't have psychiatrists, we don't have psychologists. If something happens to a woman, she goes to the other women in the community and she shares her story. And we actually believe that the minute you tell your story to someone else, that's where your healing starts. It's no longer your problem to carry alone. The person, the listener, carries the story with you. And I didn't realize this was going to be a virtual healing space. So 7 years ago, it was about me trying to find community, trying to find other women who might understand what I was going through. And we're now almost 250,000 women in 45 countries. And it's been the most incredible thing I've ever been involved in. I did go on to get married again, so I'm a bit of a sucker when it comes to love. I thought I need to find my soulmate, somebody I can die with. And I met a man while I was recovering from heart failure. Absolutely love bombed me. He swept in and swooped in and cared for me. I have never been looked after like that before, only to realize a few years later that I was married to a narcissist. And this all happened, just before COVID. So we were together for almost 4 years. And, while in isolation, you can't quite tell who a person is
Sure.
until after the lockdown. So fortunately, my only daughter had married an Australian, and I came to Melbourne to be with her while she was having her baby. And the second lockdowns happened while I was in Melbourne, and I was stuck in Australia for 8 months. I couldn't go back to New Zealand. And in those 8 months, the whole 4 year relationship just disintegrated. He told me I didn't love him. I should have come back home. And I am a mother first. My children come first. I don't care who I'm with. If I'm with a man, he has to understand that. So I am actually going through my second divorce now, and it has been an absolute nightmare. I look back now and think, why didn't I see that coming?
Right. Yeah.
I didn't see the signs. I had nobody else around me to point out things that were a little bit off because we were stuck together during lockdown with nobody around us. But
Yes.
I
Yeah.
will say my mother got to meet him before she died. So I took him to Africa when I first met him. I wanted my parents to approve. My mom said to me in a very cryptic way, and I wish I had listened. She said, if you meet a man who's had multiple marriages, so I was wife number four, she said you need to find where the bodies are buried. And she said it in a very cryptic way in my mother tongue. And I remember saying, Mom, why would you say something so nasty about someone you don't know? And my mother said, the common denominator in this man's marriages is him.
Right.
He had three previous relationships. There's got to be something there, basically saying exhume the previous relationships.
Right.
And looking back now, he told me the story that his first wife, he was 18, had moved to Germany from Poland as a refugee. She was going to be deported, so he married her so she could stay. I'd never met this woman. That's the story he sold me.
Right.
So they got divorced after 2 years. Wife number two, he was married for 17 years, had two children, and he moves to New Zealand with his 8 year old son and removes this boy from his mom and brings him up alone in New Zealand. I got to meet this woman once. She came to the house to visit her son, wouldn't even come into the house. They didn't talk to each other, they didn't talk about the child. And I always found it strange. And I would ask him, why doesn't she want to know how he's doing at school? And he told me she was a little bit crazy. She was bipolar. He told me things about her that now looking back were not true.
Yes, it's always the partner that's the crazy one.
Oh.
It always is. Yes.
Wife number three, I got to have contact with her because he had a 3 year old daughter with her. So she would come and we would go and pick up his daughter. But what was strange about her is, again, she never came to the house. And when it was school holidays, he didn't know where she lived. She did not want him to know her physical address. So she would text us her coordinates in a park and put her 3 year old daughter on a park bench and go and sit in the car and watch that we've come to pick her up. So she
Wow.
could not be within meters of him. And she would say, she's on this park bench, come and pick her up and bring her back to that park bench. They didn't talk to each other. Again, no contact, no conversations around the child and schooling. So there were a lot of warning signs, and he made these women sound like they were the crazy ones.
Right. Right.
So I have a lot of regrets not having trusted my intuition around some of these things.
But I think one of the important things from your message, Gertrude, is that no matter how much we know about this, you had spoken to women from all over the world about this. You had created this amazing Her Story Circle. You've done all of these fantastic things, and we can still get drawn into a bad relationship. And I think we have to, as women, stop blaming ourselves and stop beating ourselves up for doing
True.
these things, because like you said, and I think the other thing I wanted to point out is, that there's a lot of research now that talks about the higher risk that women have if they've been through one or more divorces for serious health issues like
Mm.
cardiovascular issues, cancers, depression. This is there's starting to get to be enough interest in this that the research is coming out. So it's unfortunate for people that have to experience it, but it's a
Yeah.
very real thing how we carry that stress in our bodies.
And when you have been married for a long time, I mean, I met my first husband when I was 17. So I never dated. I was like a 49-year-old virgin when I left my husband, and I don't know how to read cues. I don't know the danger signs. There is a certain naivety about women who've been in long-term relationships. And once you're out there on your own, you don't even know where to start.
Exactly. Yes, yes. And I know that one of the things that you work with women on is getting comfortable, or the importance of us as women who have been through some of these challenges or some inspirational things as well, but telling our stories. Can you talk a little bit about why that is an area of focus for you?
I think telling your story is part of your healing. I laugh about all of my mishaps now, right? Few months ago, a few years ago, I was a total mess. But the more I talk about it, the stronger I get, the more I get the story out of my system, out of my cells. And I think it's important for us to share these stories as women because your story could be the survival guide for somebody else.
Yes.
Somebody is waiting to hear your story. And my grandmother used to say that what doesn't kill you makes you a teacher. If you get through something, you have learned something, and you should empower and impart the knowledge that you've learned to the next person. And I
Yes.
think that's why it's so important for us to share.
And those stories that show how we went from a difficult time and how we overcame it. So it's not just telling the
The
bad
bad stuff.
relationship, but it's like, and then this is what I did with this. Like
Yeah.
that is what I think lights people's fires and gets them thinking, hey, if she could do that, I could do that too.
Yeah, when I look back, I never thought out of my pain, I would have created a global movement that would attract 250,000 women in less than 7 years. I never saw that coming. But what I did see was that there was a need for us to connect. And it's about building community as well. When you are going through these challenges alone, you feel very, very isolated. You feel like you're the only person who's going through it until you start talking to other women. And
Right.
then you find that your story is more common than it's uncommon. And it doesn't matter where you're from, we have very similar experiences as women. So it's very important for us to share.
And I think that one of the unique things about the movement that you have created is the global nature of it. And you're right. I've listened to many of your Her Story Circle podcasts because they're so inspirational. And you're right. I mean, there's women from all around the world, small little rural areas, big urban areas, but we're all dealing with the same sort of challenges. And it's hard to believe that. In some ways it's hard to believe, but in other ways it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as women, we go through exactly the same things. Our emotions are the same. Doesn't matter what geographic location you're based in or your social economic situation. It's a similar shared experience.
Yes. Now, one of the things that you do that I think is fantastic, because not most people have a fear of speaking. I'm just going to say that I don't. I've never had a fear of speaking. As a matter of fact, that's probably my problem. Sometimes I don't know when to stop speaking. But you help people get up and talk on big stages like TEDx stages. So you have a
Right.
specific support network and framework that you use with people. Are you comfortable with sharing a little bit about that? Because I mean, like I said, your TEDx talks, and I'm going to make sure the links are in the show notes so people can listen to them. Your TEDx, like you can't listen to that and not go, I'm going to get out there and do something. So tell us a little bit about this whole TEDx thing and how you help people.
So, TEDx is a great platform to build your thought leadership. I have to admit, I got lucky with my first one. I had written a book, and somebody said to me, "You need to get on TED. If you want this book to go global, get on TED." And it just so happened that I had read a poem that's in my book at a local government event that was sponsored by Wellington City Council. The mayor was in the room. She came up to me and said, "Where did you get that poem from?" And I said, "Oh, it's just a poem from a book that I'm writing." And I made friends with the mayor of Wellington. So when they created the first TEDx event in New Zealand, in Wellington, she handpicked me and nominated me to be one of the speakers. So I didn't look for it. I was nominated and I took the opportunity to share my story. What happened with that first TED Talk is the minute that video hit the internet, it was global visibility and instant credibility. The TED branding is so strong, it makes people think, who is this person? They lean in. And I remember getting my first US speaking opportunity through a billionaire family in Pittsburgh called the Rooneys, who own the Steelers football team. So Mrs. Rooney was a professor at this private university. And when she retired, she created an academic position called the Rooney International Scholar. And she goes online and she handpicks the people who come to lecture for 6 months at this prestigious university. So I got a 6 month stint. I lectured 2 hours a week. I was paid $10,000 a week for 2 hours. And I actually wrote my second book while I was in Pittsburgh. And my memoir transitioned into an academic textbook. And what I had done really well is I had infused an African philosophy called Ubuntu into my personal story. Because when I talked about Ubuntu in New Zealand, in Australia, everybody thought I was talking about the Linux operating system.
System. I was going to say that when I first
Yes.
saw it, that's what I thought. I thought that can't be right.
But the operating system is designed on the principles of this ancient African philosophy. So there's a lot of misappropriation of African content. And I remember being quite cheeky about it. And I thought, I'm going to take this word back. I'm going to own it. And so I changed the title of my book from Born on the Continent to Born on the Continent, subtitle was Ubuntu. And I rewrote my chapters and I wrapped the philosophy around my personal story. Didn't know I was branding myself as the Ubuntu expert because there were no books written about the philosophy. I became one of the first African authors to write about it. And it has totally changed my life. I've now lectured in over 45 universities around the world. My book is now translated into Brazilian Portuguese, Italian, and Spanish. And then a BBC reporter picked up on my story, again through the TED Talks. She interviewed me because she was doing a write-up about Ubuntu. Her video went viral, and all these universities in Brazil started contacting me and inviting me to speak and to lecture, and it's just been incredible. And then I got myself a coach, and I thought I want to see if I can get on TED a second time and keep explaining the philosophy from different perspectives. I came to upstate New York for the second TED Talk. Again, that talk went online and more magical things have happened. My speaking fee jumped from $3,000 an hour in New Zealand to 35,000 US dollars for a keynote. And if you're serious about thought leadership and being a speaker, the TED platform will do it for you.
Yeah. Well, what an amazing story. And whenever I talk to really successful people, it's always there's always one little spark somewhere way at the beginning. And it's something as simple as, and this wasn't simple, but making an acquaintance of the right person. And but it's always done in such a natural and authentic way. If you just decided, oh, I'm going to go out and meet Bill Gates, like really, what's your chance of actually doing that? But you could meet somebody who knew Bill Gates, that kind of thing. So
That is so true.
I love your story. I just think it's fantastic. And I want to stress to people that are listening, you did all of this while you were dealing with health issues, relationship issues, life issues, being a mom. I know you're a grandmother now. So it's not like you put all the rest of your life on hold to pursue your professional goals, right?
No. No, I was fortunate. When I was writing my first book, I was 31 years old, and I read a book called Refuse to Choose. I don't know the author, but I will never forget that book. It was about a woman who was told, oh, have your babies first and then go back to work. And she decided that she would refuse to choose one thing. So I've done multiple things. All of the businesses I've created, there's no connection to any of them. But my mother used to say I was ADHD. I just wasn't medicated. So I tend to have interest in very, very different things and I pursue them. And I refuse to choose one lane. So I've lived a magical life because I see something, if I'm inspired, I just pluck up the courage to give it a try. And I've had a lot of things that have gone wrong, don't get me wrong, but I think my biggest regret would be not trying. I
Right.
don't ever want to go through life thinking, oh, if only I had done that. I would rather fail and say, at least I tried, than
Yes.
not having tried.
Yeah, and it's that we talked about this with various people on the podcast, but it really is that sense of knowing that you have the capacity to not only do it and succeed, but to do it and fail and get up and be stronger after you did that. And I think that's what we can all take away from this. So Gertrude, you're just, like I said, you're just an amazing person. I'm so glad you were able to come on today. And our time is almost over. I cannot believe how fast these things go. But I did want to let people know that I'm going to make sure all of the links to your TEDx talks are in the show notes. You have also generously provided a gift for the listeners, which is an assessment on where they are preparing for a TEDx talk. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
So I've designed a tool. You go through this questionnaire and I will apply it to this tool that I've developed, and it pulls out your thought leadership. It will give you an outline for a potential TED talk. It will do some research and say, hey, watch this video. It's similar to your content. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I believe if somebody out there has got content similar to mine, I want to learn from them, see how they did it well, and do it better. So that's the gift that I'm giving everyone. And I'm also gifting a free 30-minute consultation with me.
Oh,
So if
thank
you're
you.
inspired and you want to do a TED Talk, when you fill out the form, I will send you a calendar invite and we can connect and talk about your idea and see how we can get you on TED.
Oh, thank you. What a lovely gift. That's amazing. And now, Gertrude, if people want to find out more about you or listen in on your amazing interviews and stuff, what's the best way to do that?
So I am mostly on LinkedIn under my name, Getrude Matshe. My podcast is on YouTube. It's the Her Story Circle podcast. And I also have the Diversity Connector podcast. Those
Wonderful.
are the two main platforms where I play the most.
Wonderful. And I'm going to ask you for one last parting words of wisdom here. Of all that we've talked about today and all that you share with the world, what is a one takeaway thought that you'd like people to remember?
One takeaway is never regret what you have gone through in life. I try to unpack if I would undo everything I've gone to up until this point, especially with my first husband. He hurt me. He hurt me. But I started loving him again when I looked at my grandson. And I thought if I hadn't been with this man, I wouldn't have these three amazing children. My kids adore me. They love every lump, every bump, every default on me. They love their mom. And now I have this gorgeous little 4-year-old boy who thinks I am just the most delightful person on earth. So never regret what you've gone through. Just take it as an experience, pull out the lessons. It's made me stronger. It's made me more resilient. So everything that's gone wrong in your life is just a stepping stone to something better.
What a wonderful message, and what a great way to wind this up. Getrude, again, thank you so much for your time and for being here today and for sharing all your story and your words of wisdom. Really appreciate that.
It's been an absolute honor. Thank you for having me on your show.
And I want to thank everybody for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next Tuesday. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.